What is going on, everyone? Welcome 32 to another episode of Beyond the Tape. TJ Wingard here with you, and today is the fun stuff. You know, we spend a year getting ready for the NFL draft, then it comes and goes over the span of 3 days, and now we got to sit back, and assess these NFL draft classes. So I'm going through each and every draft class team by team and dishing out a grade for all 32 NFL squads. Would love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think had the best draft? I only gave out one A+ this year, and fortunately enough, I think everyone did a really good job, but who do you think had the weakest of these draft classes? I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on who maybe, who you would rank as Team 32. I think every team came away as a better squad all in all, had picks that I liked. I'll talk about that as we go team by team, but I'd love to know who you would maybe rank as 32, the 32nd best class in this year's NFL draft. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. Kicking things off with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to give the Arizona Cardinals an A- best pick. I'll probably go Walter Nolan just because Will Johnson does come with the injury concerns, so no guarantee that he lives up to the status of being a top 10 player on my board. But when you look off pure value, it should be Will Johnson, top 10 player on my board, and they get him in the middle of the second round. But with the knee injuries and then also like pro days in the high 4.5s, low 4.6 with the 40s, maybe we take that into account. Not information I was privy to, didn't have an official pro day time, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't look at his knee and tell what's going on there. So I'll go with Walter Nolan, but Jordan Burch, also a really good football player. Cody Simon, like that pick a lot. Denzel Burke's a good scheme fit. So I think in the right usage on the outside, using him a lot in press, kind of limiting how much one-on-one man coverage he's in, I think that could be a solid player too. So all in all, another really nice class put together by Monty Ossenforth, and this time kind of focusing on the defensive side of the ball, which goes a long way because that's a unit that definitely needed it. To the Atlanta Falcons, A-, and spoiler alert, if you don't like the A-, then I would turn away, because I really do think a lot of teams came away exponentially better. Then there's just little knocks that bumped them down. So with the Falcons, the obvious one is they gave up their future first-round pick to get James Pierce Jr. in that trade-up. That's a very costly trade-up. It makes me think of the Rams last year with Braden Fisk. I probably dinged them a little too much for that. They gave up a future second to go get a guy who was a huge impact player for them and a big reason why they made it as far as they did. Not the sole reason, but a big reason why. So, you can think of just, hey, your first-round pick next year is James Pierce Jr. That's awesome. Hopefully he works out. You could think of it that way. But yes, they gave up a future first, for that trade. But they had 5 picks, and you look at the 5 names on the screen. Walker, Pierce, awesome scheme fits for Raheem Morris, and for a team that just had to get better in the front seven, had to get more pass rush, those 2 guys check that box. Now you have a secondary that includes Xavier Watts, who comps very similarly to Jesse Bates. One, with their play style is a great free safety over the top weapon, but also like 4.5 in the 40, pretty much very similar, heights and weight. So, or maybe not totally in the 40. Watts might be a little bit slower, but definitely in play style. Now you have both those guys in a defense that's going to run a good amount of quarters. So those 2 guys playing those middle lanes, sign me up for that. And they get Billy Bowman Jr., who they should just play the slot, because I think that's a spot where they can definitely get better. And Billy Bowman Jr., plays guy in the box, play him in the slot, feisty for days, very good athlete. No one told him he's as small as he is. My type of guy, especially in the 4th round. And Jack Nelson, kind of a guy that, maybe, he could be like a, late day 1, day 2 type of pick, way back in last year's summer scouting. Last September, last August, maybe we were talking about that. Didn't really live up to that type of potential billing, but I do think in the 7th round, he's an interesting scheme fit for this team, and maybe a move inside to guard could potentially be in his future too, but Swiss Army knife, kind of multiple bowl of clay, where do you want to play this guy? He is a good scheme fit, so we're just going to find the right position for him. But all in all, they had 5 picks coming into the weekend, and if you told me these were the 5 names, I'd be jumping through the roof. So they don't get an A or an A+ because they did give up that future first-round pick, but an A- because these are the 5 names you came away with. Color me surprised, but then also, color me interested in what this defense is going to look like next year. So I absolutely love it. Baltimore Ravens take it a true A. One, just based off sheer volume. Sometimes it's hard to parse out number of picks. It's sometimes a little easier, like the Steelers once we get there. Their second-round pick's essentially DK Metcalf. It's a little easier for our brain to kind of wrap our heads around that. But sometimes, moves happen so far in the past that you kind of forget about it. And next, like the Falcons, they were down one of their picks for Matthew Judon. I didn't even talk about it because it was so long ago that how could my brain possibly remember that? But it's in there. And then on the other side, the Ravens, your 4 6-round picks. And let's just start there. A kicker, that's the most interesting part. No doubt about it. Oh, by the way, Falcons' best pick, Jalen Walker. Number 5 player on my board. I had to talk about that. But then Aeneas Peebles, which in the running for my favorite pick here. just because I liked him a ton. Top 100 player. I think in the 6th round. I think he's an interesting 3-tech option, pass rush specialist for them. LeJonte Western, little spark plug option. Nice little insurance if there's ever a Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman injury. Longer beam, and then Dellinger. Then in the 7th round pick, or in the 7th, solid interior offensive lineman who could potentially give you some flexibility on the inside. Sign me up for that. But I think my best pick, I want to go Mike Green here just based off sheer volume or sheer value. 16th player on my board, and they get him at the end of the 2nd. There's definitely some off the field stuff. Every team in the league passed on him. So there's definitely something there that I'm just not privy to fully. So I'll go with Malachi Starks. I think this solidifies that secondary. You move Marlon Humphrey back outside. Let's get Kyle Hamilton back in the nickel. Or Darius Washington kind of roaming around. Starks can be versatile. So I'll go with that because I think it's a home run slam dunk fit. But I will say Mike Green is definitely the one from a value standpoint that I'm like, oh, I really want to go in that direction. But I also really like Emory Jones. Versatile. Could be a guard, could be a tackle. Probably more likely to be guard. But I thought the feet moved a little bit better than my expectations going into that week of practices were. So maybe there's some potential, growth, and he could be a swing tackle for you. I actually think that's going to be Carson Vincent, though. And then maybe by year 3, depending on where we are with Ronnie Stanley, has he gotten injured? Where are we at with the contract? Is he living up to that status? This is a team that's got a track record of drafting and developing at a very high clip. And Vincent's got all the tools and traits that you would ever want. He just comes from a smaller school, and the competition wasn't great, but he looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl. Not going to wow you, but looked solid, had building blocks. And now he goes to this team that is great with building blocks. So, really, really interested with that fit. So I like Vincent as a backup option. Emory Jones, I think, is ideally your right guard. And then Dellinger, just like a nice swing piece. So I like them prioritizing the depth on that offensive line and potentially finding a successor for Ronnie Stanley. So, it's an A all the way around. I'll say the best pick's Malachi Starks with an honorable mention, of course, to Mike Green. Just got to know more about what's going on off the field there. Buffalo Bills. Maxwell Hairston's a great scheme fit. They run a lot of zone, but they want to be able to play man. And Hairston will excel in both those as long as he's healthy. TJ Sanders, a little bit bigger than Ed Oliver, but another nice interior pass rush specialist. Landon Jackson, this is one that I had in a lot of my mocks, especially in the 2nd round. They had those 2 picks, 60 and 62. Felt like Landon Jackson was destined to be a Bill. Feels like a great fit. A body type they've had success developing. Sign me up for this. Deion Walker, love that too. Very different type of player than a TJ Sanders. In some regards, he's different. They're both going to play 3-tech at the end of the day. Just Sanders, low pad level, quick off the line of scrimmage. Deion Walker, especially post-back injury, is 6'7", 340, 99th percentile, arm length, hand size, all that stuff. But he plays very upright. So I'm very curious here in the 4th round. Just take a flyer on him. See how he recovers even more, with time from that back injury. Can we get him to lower his pads? Can we get him to play underneath? Because the 2023 tape is like top 10 the 1st round stuff. So swing of the bat here. If nothing happens of it, he's a 4th round pick. But there is some definite boom potential there. Jackson Hall I just cannot wait to see how they deploy him. Probably leading the way for a Josh Allen QB power, and just sign me up for that. Dorian Strong's, I think, a great scheme fit. The zone-heavy defense, thought was a great place for him to go, so sign me up for that. I'm really curious if this turns into another Kyrie Elam, Christian Benford situation. I like Hairston a little bit more than I liked Elam as a scheme fit for Buffalo, so I'm hopeful that works out. And Chase Lunt, I think, is a really fun fit, too. Underrated player, thought he should have gone before the 6th round. Caden Prather, solid player, too, should have gone before the 7th round, so all that to say, lots to like here for the Bills. I'll go with my favorite fit, to be honest, probably Landon Jackson, just because, Landon Jackson wasn't necessarily, my favorite edge or anything like that, but this was the landing spot. If he goes to Buffalo, sign me up for that. I think that's one of the best case scenarios for Jackson, and it's a great outcome for the Buffalo Bills. So sign me up, Landon Jackson, best pick from the Bills. Carolina Panthers, I'll be quick here. My favorite pick is Teddarell McMillan, but I like this draft class, minus Trevor Etienne. I could have done without that pick, but kind of working backwards forwards here. Jimmy Horn Jr., what do you have to lose? Let's see what he can do for the 6th round pick. Mitchell Evans, nice inline blocking tight end. I think he complements J.C. Sanders and his weaknesses as a blocker really well. Cam Jackson, nice little run stopping DT. That's a specialist. They have Derek Brown, but Brown's coming off an injury. Wouldn't be bad to have a guy behind him with a similar skill set to stop the run. Lathan Ransom, this safety tandem has got to get better. Merritt can be versatile. I really like Lathan Ransom as that box safety, hard-hitting type. Etienne, not really in love with that, but it sounds like Jonathan Brooks can be out all this year, so minimum, you're getting a guy with a ton of burst and some nice pass catching upside. Just got to get better reading blocks. So it will be interesting to see long term what happens with Jonathan Brooks. And then Uman Mielen Scorton. This team needed more pass rush. I told y'all they were going to take 2. I just thought it was going to be Jalen Walker and someone else. My last mock, it was Jalen Walker and Uman Mielen. So I did nail at least one of those 2. Heard they had a lot of visits with Uman Mielen. Sometimes that means they were trying to get a better idea of you, or sometimes it means they really like you. In this instance, it felt like they really liked Princely Uman Mielen. So love the upside of Scorton plus Uman Mielen on that edge tandem. And then Ted McMillan, I think the reason I'll call it my favorite pick is because this is not a team that was looking for any wide receiver at 8. Whoever was there, we're going best receiver available. Tad Golden, it wasn't the case. They were looking for the wide receiver, the right one that makes, okay, Xavier Legette becomes our number 2 guy. Okay, then Jalen Coker and Thielen work from the slot. Plus now Hunter Renfrow coming home, former Clemson legend. I mean, what's not to love there? So yeah, I think this just makes all those other pieces in that wide receiver room. These guys who were like Xavier Legette, he's a role player. Drafting him to be your number 1 guy, I think we see after 1 year, could be wrong here, I think we see after 1 year, he's not going to be the number 1 leading target guy in an offense. But now he's a role player, and he's a complementary skill set to Teteroa McMillan with his long speed, when that's the main knock on Tet. So now everything just kind of falls into place. And I'm a big Jalen Coker guy, like him as a power slot. You could use some McMillan there too. So a lot of flexibility. I think this just makes that receiver room fall right into place for Bryce Young going into year 3. So that absolutely has to be my favorite pick here from the Panthers. Bears, I'll give them an A-. Loveland Burden, sign me up for this. Like, Ben Johnson coming in, and you can tell he's fully getting his shot. You know, like they're gonna give him every opportunity to fail. Like Caleb, Ben Johnson, they're all in on this. So love the third receiver addition. Love what they could use out of Colston Loveland. And it's gonna be interesting. Burden, Z to slot. Loveland, how much inline versus H-back versus slot. Like they just have so many different places they could play these guys, and so many different Swiss Army knife type of weapons too. So like I'm absolutely here for it. Trapilo was a little bit of an interesting one just because Darnell Wright is a player who exists on the Chicago Bears roster and a former top 10 pick at that. So Trapilo, like, end of the second round, are we seeing him as a guard? I always kind of saw him as a tackle. I think the hip fluidity and kind of stiffness there prevents him from moving inside a guard. Plus he's 6'8". That's a pretty big guard. So I don't know. I see him as a tackle. Maybe they're just saying, hey, he's going to be our Dan Skipper, and we're not going to have an offensive line injury cripple our season. And maybe they flip him over to the left side. And maybe that's some competition for Braxton Jones. Who's to say? Can't wait to find out once we get into OTAs, rookie camps, training camps, all that sort of stuff to get a better idea. But you can never have too many offensive linemen. And back into the second round, I think that was a good value there for Trapilo. Shamar Turner, I would have preferred Darius Alexander, I'll be honest with you. But, he is an interesting guy with experience playing inside and out, very athletic. Would have been a guy who tested well, probably would have showed well for himself the Senior Bowl and that type of a setting. If not for, one, playing this entire year hurt, tape would have been better. And then two, that injury prevents him going to the Senior Bowl, prevents him from testing, all that sort of stuff. So there's a what-if scenario here for Shamar Turner that would have been very interesting to explore what this draft cycle could have been for him if he's healthy. But ultimately, he falls back into the second round, and maybe it's a steal for the Bears. So intrigued by that. Hyperpolite is probably the one I don't like the most. Didn't really watch much. Didn't really like what I saw. Good athlete. And that's about all I can say. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. Zav Frazier, though. You reeled me back in with a Zav Frazier pick in the 5th round. Athletic, long, lanky corner. I'm really interested to see what Dennis Allen could try to do with that. Luke Newman, more offensive line depth. And then Kyle Monangai, just to go get this, as Connor Rogers calls him, the Honda Civic. I mean, this guy is a no-nonsense, hard runner. And you already have Roshan Johnson. You already have DeAndre Swift. But, and then also Monangai, one of the best goal line backs in this class, too. So, not taking no for an answer. We're going to cross the pylon, cross the end zone with Kyle Monangai in that backfield. And I love that no-nonsense running style for all the flair you're going to get with Loveland and Burden. You still got to tackle a guy like Kyle Monangai. So, love what the Bears did here. Really good class to start out the Ben Johnson era. Best pick, I'll go with Luther Burden. Should have been a top 20 pick in my eyes. I don't understand. Maybe the character stuff is just enough. But even with the character stuff, taking him in the second round kind of alleviates my concern there. So, love that fit for Chicago. Cincinnati Bengals. Shamar Stewart was a top 10 player on my board, so obviously I like that value there at 17. Demetrius Knight definitely makes sense for the eventual Jermaine Pratt trade whenever it comes. Fairchild, plug-and-play guy there at left guard. Barrett Carter, I think a good scheme fit for Al Golden, the new DC. Jalen Rivers, really nice contingency option for that interior offensive line. Love to see them double up, and honestly I think one could play left guard, one could eventually, sooner rather than later, honestly, potentially be their starting right guard in Cincinnati. And also Rivers, former tackle at Miami, so you got some flexibility there if, need be, he swings over. And then Taj Brooks, I love this too because maybe the best pass protector in this class, like him, Henderson, and Hampton. That's the true, and it's really Henderson and it's Brooks. But I love Brooks as the power brute force runner, and then also a huge upgrade in pass protection over someone like Chase Brown, who's a great pass catcher. So now, if you're feeling pressure or whatever, they're going to send it, you can have Brooks out there instead of Brown and feel a little bit better about that from a pass pro standpoint. And you got millions of reasons to want to keep Joe Burrow, with a good pass protector next to him. So I really like that addition, especially in the 6th round. So rock solid draft. They didn't have a full 7 or anything like that. But I think they really maximized the picks here. And I'm trying to do that. I am trying to grade on a scale here, especially if I can account for a player, right? Like DK Metcalf, some of these things where I can look at a part of your offseason into that grade. But also, this team had 7 picks. They don't have a 7th rounder. So, so be it. I'm trying to account for that. But I do think, they addressed a lot of areas of need. Edge, interior offensive line, complementary running back, linebacker at a couple spots. Yeah, they addressed a lot of the stuff they need to get better at, specifically on the defensive side. So, like that a lot. Cleveland Browns is the 1A plus I gave out. I get it. You gave up the opportunity to draft Travis Hunter. And Travis Hunter is the number 1 player on my board. I totally understand it. And he's going to be a weird player when it comes to talking about wins above replacement. Because what do you do with a guy who's a 1.5 position player? What do you do with that? But you accumulate an extra second this year, a future first, and you still get one of my blue chippers in this class at a position I need. That's just fantastic process. Carson Schwarzenegger, not necessarily who I thought they would key in on as a type. Jim Schwartz typically rushes before, so I'm interested to see where this goes, but off-ball linebacker too, let's go. Sign me up for it. Judkins makes a lot of sense, one that we've mocked a ton. Harold Fannin, Kevin Stefanski, this kind of signals to me that he's probably going to be taking over as the play caller. Once again, I know it was a little on again, off again with the OCs the last few years between him and Ken Dorsey and co. But if he's calling the plays, he's a 2 tight end set guy, and he's going to have Harold Fannin in a good position, playing Njoku in line, Fannin off of it as the H-back. He's going to get creative, and that's going to be really fun. And then you get to Dylan Gabriel and the Shedeur Sanders of it all. We got to have a conversation there. The quarterbacks. I also do want to hit on Dylan Sampson. Love this hammer-nail situation. I don't know if that's really the, thunder-lightning, we'll call it. Not hammer-nail. That's kind of weird. Thunder-lightning situation with Judkins, hard-nosed runner, bounces off guys, killer stiff arm, and then Sampson, 4-4-2, really nice 10-yard split. This is the home run hitter, so I really like that 1-2 punch long-term. And then we get to the quarterback conversation. And honestly, part of the reason I give it an A+ is this is not a quarterback class where we felt confident outside of Cam Ward. We didn't feel like these guys were slam dunk. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, not these types of guys. We're face of the franchise types. So yes, Shedeur Sanders has the name value, and I projected him to go in the 1st round of my mock draft. Yes, all this stuff is true. But nevertheless, the league sees him as a 5th rounder because of the interviews and off the field stuff and all that sort of stuff. They see him as a 5th rounder. So in a QB class, that's not good. But there's some intriguing mid-round guys. Doesn't it make sense to get a couple guys in there and give yourself multiple opportunities to see if one of them could pan out, be a good scheme fit? At the worst, be a potential long-term backup you can lean on and be a cheap option, at least for the time being. And worst comes to worst, if Sanders isn't any good, you're moving on from a 5th-round pick. If Gabriel doesn't pick it up, which I have a hard time thinking he won't just because of who the guy is and who the player is, you just let him go. He's back in the 3rd rounder, basically 4th rounder. So, no risk. There is some upside. I don't think either one of these guys become Hall of Famers, but there is some upside there. And who knows, maybe Shedeur Sanders is the best guy in that room by the time you show up and they get his attitude in check. And maybe he's starting by the time we get to the season. And who knows, maybe they feel confident enough to say, hey, we got 2 first-round picks and we're going to build around Shedeur next year. Possibilities are endless. But if he's not the guy, you didn't draft him at 2 and you don't have to sell everything you're doing to make it work with Sanders. So this is just a fantastic process. And honestly, I think teams should take multiple swings to the bat. Sometimes we see it, and it's like an early round guy, and then like a developmental backup, RG3, Kirk Cousins example, just one of many that we could look to. But you have nothing to lose here. If they don't work out, and Flacco and Pickett are better, cut them both. Practice squad, one of them, something. So I love the process. To me, it's really sound thinking. This is like Andrew Berry. This is the guy who embraces analytics, is moving the sport in this direction, and I'm very much in that same boat of thinking. So I am partial here. I think I would run a team very similar or as close as I can to how Andrew Berry has done it, minus, Sands, Deshaun Watson trade. How much is that him? How much is that ownership? But slam dunk process, trading back for Graham, multiple swings to the back at the quarterback position. Really like the running back tandem. And then Fannin, Schlesinger, really interesting pieces for both sides of the ball and how those coordinators, play callers are going to run it. So love what the Browns did here. And I'm a Steelers fan. I take no joy in relishing and process for a division rival here. This is not fun, but the Ravens and the Browns, man, perennial A grades in the draft for me because they go about it, for the most part, in the right way. You take a sample size of 10 years, 9 times out of 10, they're crushing the draft. All right, next up, Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be one of the few Bs I give out. But if I'm ranking up the Dallas Cowboys as team 32 in my team rankings, and I gave them a B, that just signals how far we've come. Think about, go back and remember the first NFL draft you watched. For me, it was 2004. Yeah, 2004 NFL draft. Just started watching football. 2005. Just started watching the NFL. The Steelers had just won the Super Bowl in the 04-05 season. Shout out Willie Parker. Think about how much has changed from then now, and like position value. How much the 40, yes, we care about the 40 now, but like how much that would sometimes just get a guy like Kevin White drafted in the top 10. Like so much has changed. So if team 32 out of 32 is getting a B, holy cow, like round of applause. We have done it. Like we have engineered so much advancements in this realm, and that's part of what makes it so exciting for me. And that's part of why I like talking about this stuff, just because we've advanced so much in the team building conversations, and it's become more nuanced. Not fully, but it's become way more nuanced than it was 2 decades ago. That it's exciting. And there's not a whole lot of wrong answers. There's just different ways of conducting business. And that's also like evaluating this. There is no one size fits all or like one tried and true. You can only do it this way. Narrow is the road that leads to NFL salvation. It's not that. There's 32 teams conducting business in 32 different ways, and I'm here to evaluate which one I think is closest to right. So, like, it's really fun. Sorry to geek out real quick, but I just had to put that in as a caveat too. Yeah, I'd probably say the Cowboys had the worst draft, but I love their day two. Like, Ezeraku and Chavon Ravel, like, let's just start right there. Favorite pick? I'll probably go Ezeraku just because I think there's more guarantee, or there's a higher floor there. I should say, also, let's go back. Did I give out a favorite pick for the Browns? Favorite pick? I love the process for the Mason Graham trade back. I get it's given up the opportunity to draft Travis Hunter, but I still think that's super sound process. Cincinnati Bengals. Favorite pick? I'll go with Shamar Stewart. And then Bears, I said Burton. Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm slacking here, but there's just so much to talk about. Cowboys, favorite pick? I'll go with Donovan Ezeraku. Love that addition to the defensive line. Didn't think it was something they had to do in the top 50, but if Ezeraku falls in your lap at 44, shoot, why not? Ravel's a really interesting draft and develop guy. Matt Eberflus has done a pretty good job of like getting corners to their highest level of play. It's a lot of cover two in his scheme, so I wonder where Ravel fits into that, but I do like Eberflus plus Ravel and where that track record could go. Jaden Blue, love that as a pass. That's like the explosive pass catcher. Every time I would mock them, Travion Henderson, like this is the 5th round version of that. So absolutely love Jaden Blue on top of the guys they have. Just needs to hold on to the football. Shamar James, minimum, he's a solid special teamer. Ajanai Cornelius, I'm hopeful. I think he's a guy that I would probably draft and stash on day 3 and just see where we are by end of year 2, middle of year 2, beginning of year 3. And with that Terrence Steele contract in specific, I'm keeping a close eye on this situation. I would not be shocked. Cornelius has got a lot working for him. Good athlete, solid tape, work to be done. But with 2 years of NFL coaching, I wouldn't be shocked if he becomes their right tackle. And then Phil Maffa, another running back. I don't know, man. Like he played last year, hurt, big physical, big play guy though. So like it's kind of a hard back for me to quit. Big, physical, and fast. Oof, that's a hard trio for me to quit. But yeah, all in all, solid draft. Didn't love the Tyler Booker. My first round grades are out if you want to go hear more in-depth analysis of that. I understand it. It felt like more of a legacy pick. Martin's out, so we got to go draft the next great Cowboys interior offensive lineman. Okay. Don't think he's a great scheme fit, to be honest, with Schottenheimer, and I don't think he's a very good athlete. He's the biggest reach of the first round for my board versus where he went, but he's a good football player, and everyone speaks about his character. And that's, again, I didn't get to interview this guy, so I can't fully account for that. But if he's the all-character type of dude, I understand why they would make that pick at 12, but I think Ezeraku, Chavon Ravel, that day 2 for the Cowboys, like chef's kiss, one of the best day 2s of any team. And I'm saying that about the team I'd probably give the lowest grade to, which is crazy. That's, again, we're making strides as a draft community, as an NFL draft, space in general, including the teams, including exec, all that sort of stuff. Denver Broncos next up. All right, I'll give them an A-. Favorite pick. You know what? I kind of wanted to say Jahdae Barron, but I kind of love RJ Harvey. I didn't think he would go second round. I thought if he was going to go day 2, it'd be somewhere in the mid to third, kind of looking at the Vikings, looking at the Jags, but damn, especially after hearing Sean Payton talk about him, sign me up, pump this into my veins. Like, I love him in addition to what Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, like, in addition to the guys that are already there, Harvey is the best pure runner, but also, like, where he's weak, Estime picks him up as a pass protector. And, like, I think he could be a good pass catcher, but right now, McLaughlin gives you a little bit more there. So, I like the state of that running back room, and they didn't have to do it in the first round, so I really like that. And hearing Sean Payton talk about RJ Harvey, you're like, oh, shit, how could I not love this? Jahdae Barron, though, honorable mention, love what he could do, especially if they play him in the nickel. Like, use him as a blitzer, take advantage of how good of a tackler he is, zone, man coverage, you name it. Jahdae Barron will be an impact player for you if you play him right there. He could also be a good outside corner, just preferably in off coverage because of the sub 30-inch arms. Pat Bryant was one of my guys. I'm a big-time Pat Bryant guy. I thought he'd go in the 4th round, though, so this was a little early than I thought, but he is like X receiver, or he could be a power slot, so he's like Sean Payton type through and through. Savion Jones is one I'd mocked the Broncos a few times. Totally makes sense. Like, this is a John Franklin Myers successor in kind of the making, I think. It's that 3-tech. Q Robinson, they're just going to have this edge room of all these guys sub 250. And you know what? Who cares? It's kind of an overblown thing. If you're willing to stop the run, if you'll set a hard edge, we can make everything else work. It's not always that simple, but when it gets to 3rd and 10 and you're unleashing Nick Benito and Jonah Ellis and Q Robinson, all these, fucking speed runners who can bend and dip the corner, and I don't know. Do you need everyone to be 270? I don't know. I don't think you do. So I just love that they were just like, hey, let's go get another one. Another designated pass rush specialist. And he's a really good football player, man. Unique build, unique body, but really solid tape. So I'm totally here for that in the 3rd round. But Harvey, I'll go with my favorite pick there for the Broncos. Detroit Lions, I know B+. I normally am like Brad Holmes is like, I'm almost always giving that guy an A. So, tamed it back a little bit. Isaac Tesla, we'll start there because like the player, I would have been way more intrigued with him on like day 3 value. I'll be honest, 4th round, let's take a shot on him. But then furthermore, giving up a 3rd this year and a 3rd next year, or both 3rds next year. Sorry, you're moving up from 101 or 102 rather, and then giving up both 3rds next year. I don't love that, giving up 2 future 3s, but we'll see how it pans out. But I do feel like that was a lot to move up 32 spots to go get Tesla. But Tyreek Williams, love him as a DJ Reader, eventual successor, no nonsense, 4-man D line. This is your 2-gap run stopper. Tate Ratledge feels like a line. This feels like a Dan Campbell type through and through. Interior offensive line reinforcements. Frazier, more of the same. Love him as a pass protector. Amon Hassanen's guy I've been hyping up. Thought about making him one of my day 3 my guys when we talked to Matt Miller. Like his tape, really cool story. Feels like a Lion interior defensive lineman. Outside. You kind of move him around, but feels like a Lions type for sure. Dan Jackson too. Like, just there is only one speed Dan Jackson plays, and it's his absolute hardest. Like 110%, flies around the field, mostly downhill, and he will absolutely lay the wood. So, and then another Georgia guy, Dominic Lovett. We'll see where that goes. Kind of so and love it. But favorite pick, I'll go Ratledge. Man, that feels like a Lion type. And Glasnow is getting up there in age. You also have Ragnow getting up there in age. So it's about time for them to invest in some interior offensive linemen like Ratledge, like Frazier, good honorable mention there. And I like Tyreek too. It's not my favorite pick from the 1st round, but I understand their mentality there. Green Bay Packers, favorite pick's got to be Matthew Golden. Like this, and all draft cycle, every time I would mock this, I was like, look, I get it, Packers fans, they're probably not going to do it, but happy to be wrong here. This is exactly what they want Christian Watson to be. Like, this is the exact player that they want him to be. Field stretcher who actually has ball skills, can actually go up and contort his body, make a tough grab in the air, or at least get the flag as he goes up and fights through contact. Like, this is, yes, just get rid of Christian Watson. Sounds like he might not even play all next year. All the touches. All of them that were going to Watson. Send him to Golden and take away some from Dontavian Wicks and give him to Golden. So, and I say this is Golden, wide receiver 5 in my eyes. Behind Igbuka, behind Burden, behind Travis Hunter, of course, and behind Tedero McMillan. Still had a 1st round, valuation, or in this class, I would be comfortable taking him in the 1st round type of valuation. So yeah, and I mean, this was just the place to go if you're Matthew Golden. This was the pick to make if you're the Green Bay Packers and you're going to go receiver. So glad they finally did it after making us wait since 2002. Somewhere Aaron Rodgers is, sulking in a corner, I'm sure. Anthony Belton, a little rich for my blood. So, it's a B because, I liked Belton. Looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl. Would have preferred that the next round. Savion Williams, there's something to work with there, but where does he fit in this room? You already got a gadget type in Jaden Reed. He's going to play running back for you? That's a little interesting. Baron Sorrell, maybe a little early for me, but I actually kind of dig this fit. I'm kind of here for this. Colin Oliver, I'm very interested to see, linebacker or edge rusher. If they play him on the edge, he's kind of the speed rusher they don't really have right now, so color me interested there. And then John Williams. They've had it. I mean, I'd be remiss not to mention both their starting tackles right now are D3 picks, and Zach Tom and Rashad Walker. So I have to be interested when they take this kind of player with solid tape, good tools, good power, John Williams looked at the Shrine Bowl too, so there's a lot working for Williams, and the Packers have had success with some people in this range, so I have to be interested by that. But I'm gonna go B. It's like if you told me Belton and Williams and Sorrell, you knocked them all down around and you gave me a different 2nd round pick. I think this would have been probably A-. But as much as I love Golden, some of the other things were just a round early for me. So, and then some of the other day 3 picks, I'm like about, which normally the Packers bat 1,000 with me on day 3. I normally love their day 3, but not so much this year. Houston Texans, I'll give them an A-. I mean, I'm partial to the Iowa State guys. I've been saying all draft cycle. I can't decide which one I like more, Higgins or Knoll. And the Texans said, fuck it, we'll get them both. I'm here for it. Absolutely here for it. We'll see what happens with Tank Dell. No guarantees the same player, but Collins, Higgins, yes, they're somewhat redundant, but Wouldn't it be great to have 2 Nico Collins? I'm sure every offense in the league would want one of those. Steelers fan here, I would like 2 of those. And then Jalen Noel to go with it after those 2 guys, everything they did at Iowa State, specifically last year, but throughout their careers. Yes. Ursary, maybe a long-term tackle. Maybe they're moving to right side for some competition with Blake Fisher. Maybe he's playing guard for a year. I don't know. But they need an offensive lineman. He's a good scheme fit. I think a good plug-and-play option if they go that route. But also just one-year deal with Cam Robinson. Wouldn't shock me if they're just drafting and stashing him for a season. Jalen Smith, good player at the Senior Bowl. Someone that Alex at Hail Mary Sports really put me on. Told me to start watching some tape on. And I think a solid player. Wasn't my favorite. I don't think I like him as much as Alex. But that's okay. And anytime there's a defensive player that D'Amico Ryans is going to draft, I'm interested. Woody Marks, also a fun addition to that running back room, especially with his pass-catching background. I'm very interested. Jalen Reed, interested to see where that goes with him and Jalen Petrie. To me, both kind of box safety nickel type, so interested to see where that goes. Graham Mertz, I'm very interested to see how long he stays in the league, because there's something about Mertz that people like. Not so much for me. I'm good. I'll let someone else do that. But, there is something that seems to be there. I could totally see him be one of these guys that just kind of lives in the league longer than you'd expect. And then Luke Lachey, dude, sign me up for this Luke Lachey experiment. Top 10 tight end for me. And when he's healthy, a very good player. Just got to stay healthy. So in the 7th round, take that shot. The Texans absolutely can get better at tight end. So I like that spot. Favorite pick? I got to go Jalen Noel. Part of it's the value. You could easily say Higgins, but I'll go with Noel because they got him in the 3rd round. I definitely thought he was going to go in the 2nd and lead up to the NFL draft. Indianapolis Colts. I gave him a B+. Favorite pick's got to be Tyler Warren. This is one that every mock drafter across the world was like, yes, we did it. We manifested it. You saw this in a ton of mocks. Natural scheme fit for Shane Steichen. Multiple, impact play. He's going to make that run game better, which is very fun to think about with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, plus Jonathan Taylor, plus another running back, DJ Giddens, who signed me up, one of my guys of the draft. Love me some DJ Giddens, so cannot wait to see him in that backfield. But yeah, Warren, plus what he can do as a pass catcher, seam runner, over the field, over the middle of the field guy for those quarterbacks. Yeah, sign me up. JT Tuimoloau, maybe a round early. Justin Wally, interesting player, maybe a round early for me. Jalen Travis, I like that too. Developmental tackle. Curious to see if they're going to flip him over to the right side or if he gets some training at guard. But considering their current situation on the offensive line, I think they have 5 good starters right now, but adding one more guy in that mix is never a bad idea. Riley Leonard, I just think it's hilarious. If we're honest, where Leonard went, maybe not fully honest, but Daniel Jones is you see some of those comps out there for Riley Leonard, and if there was a round between the 6th overall pick and 6th round, is probably where Daniel Jones should have gone. And, it's just funny now that Riley Leonard backs him up. So I just had to comment on that. But Tim Smith, Hunter Wooler, a couple more Senior Bowl guys. Tim Smith, I think that's an interesting potential Grover Stewart replacement as he is up and over 30. He's just going to be a run defender. Not going to give you much else, but he'll stop the run at a pretty high level, and he's a strong guy. And Hunter Wooler is this interesting box safety, tight end matchup guy. Not a very good athlete, but in the Senior Bowl, I think held his own despite that. He was always in the right position and was hanging tough with guys who are, athletically speaking, tested better than him. So something there. But I'll give the Colts a B+, and of course, best pick has got to be Tyler Warren. Jacksonville Jaguars, best pick. I feel like it's got to be Travis Hunter, but it comes with a caveat. The reason they don't get an A or an A+ is because they give up a future 1st-round pick and a 2nd rounder this year. That being said, I still think they came up with a really nice haul. Wyatt Milam, absolutely love that. They could use another interior offensive lineman. Sign me up. I think that's a great addition. Bashaw Tutton to a running back room that, yeah, I know ETN ran low 4.4s, but I feel like we're still missing some home run ability out of that backfield. So I love adding Bashaw Tutton into that offense. And they don't need him to be the lead guy right away. So while we're working on the fumble issues, we're working on the vision. He's got some time to learn and grow. Kaiser thought he was a Bengal to make him, but I'm very curious with their fascination. I know it's a new regime, but this team always is drafting linebackers. Case in point, they drafted another one right after Jack Kaiser. So maybe that's for the new scheme that's coming in. Ryan Lane, Jonah Monheim's kind of an interesting ad. LaQuint Allen, speedy, good acceleration, very nice pass catcher. So a couple of backs I'm kind of interested in here with Jacksonville Jaguars. So all in all, they give up a 2nd this year. Losing the 1st rounder next year hurts, but if this team's good, you can kind of swallow that pill a little easier. But yeah, it's an expensive move up, but they get the number 1 player on my board at pick 2, which normally I'd be sending a parade into that town. So yeah, hard not to like. It's just going to be aggressive, but we've never seen a player like Travis Hunter. And like I said, he's kind of 1.5 position player. So what do you do for wins above replacement? That in and of itself, I think, kind of gives you a pill to swallow. This year, you draft a receiver, Travis Hunter, and then that future 1st-round pick almost counts as a corner, Travis Hunter, assuming he does place them both ways. So very interested to see where this draft class goes and who wins this trade, the Browns or the Jags. Can be interesting to revisit in a year, then in 5 years, then again in 10 years. All right, Kansas City Chiefs. I'll give them an A. Josh Simmons, nice developmental piece. We'll see what happens with the injury and the long-term, ramifications of the patella tear. That is a pretty significant one, but last pick of the first round, I'm willing to take that risk. That's where my risk appetite would have been for Josh Simmons, 31-32. I'd be willing to take that shot there. Omar Norman-Lott, yeah, this type of pass rush specialist on the inside, when you already have to deal with Chris Jones, yes. This guy's going to see so many single teams, and he's going to crush. Ashton Gelati's a Chiefs, Spags defensive end / 3-4 end, interior rusher, like name it, he'll line up somewhere on that defensive line. Love that fit. Noel Williams, I had this in my last mock draft. This is an absolute Spagnuolo type. It was going to be the Chiefs here or the Vikings at 97 had they kept that spot to move back to 102. But you get what I'm saying. But these defenses, I want a man press, go get that wide receiver at the line of scrimmage type. They were going to go get him. Chiefs pick before the Vikings did in that third round. So Noel Williams, love that fit. Jalen Royals, this is like Rashee Rice insurance through and through. Love this, especially if Rice does end up getting a suspension. Love it. Even if he's there, sign me up for him, Rice, Royals, Rice, Hollywood, Worthy. More weapons, the better for the Kansas City offense. And Brashard Smith. Like, I'm going to try to hold myself to this the one time I'll mention it, but he can't keep getting away with it. I mentioned that meme and that, of course, quote from Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad all the time, normally for Howie Roseman. But this, how did the league let Andy Reid, a mastermind at screens and engineering his best players into space, how did we let them get the former receiver turned running back in the 7th round, who's a blazing great athlete, like super fast in open field, explosive, can get up to his top speed as fast as just about anybody? How did we let this happen? Who? NFL. 31 teams. I play to you. How did you let this happen? My Steelers included. Like, what are we doing? So this is the perfect landing spot. I don't know how he fell to the 7th round, my RB8, so I'm obviously a Brashard Smith guy, but damn, we let him get it away with it. Like, we really gave Brashard Smith to Andy Reid. Like, that is just too good to be true if you're a Chiefs fan. Plus, they got Jalen Royals in the 4th. I mean, so honestly, too many picks for me to pick from, because like Noel Williams, that's a slam dunk. Omar Norman-Lott, slam dunk. Gelati, slam dunk. They have a lot of receivers, so I won't go Royals. I'll go Norman-Lott. Yeah, I'll go Norman-Lott. He's the highest ranked player on my big board. And Brashard Smith's probably the biggest value play, but either one of those two, that's the best pick for the Chiefs. Damn it. How does the NFL keep letting the Chiefs get away with this? This just is bewildering to me. Los Angeles Chargers, B+, Amari Hampton, probably my favorite pick here. I said this so many times where, like, if I could do anything to make Amari Hampton a Charger, what do I have to do? So I'm like waiting for the mail to come from the devil to see what I owe him, because lo and behold, here we are. But yeah, you got Najee for a year, but like imagine 4 plus a 5th-year option of this guy, like downhill runner, also an absolute huge upgrade in pass protection. And that's the type of running back they just didn't have that skill set. I think they wanted Kamani Vidal to be better in that. And as a dynasty owner of Kamani Vidal in a couple leagues, just me, like pour one out here. Like this one is going to be where that one ends. But nevertheless, he just wasn't the pass protector that maybe they thought they were getting out of the 6th round. And then that's not really Jackie Dobbins' game. And Najee Harris is an okay pass protector, but I think Hampton's probably got him there. And especially after this year, he's going to be the guy there. So love that. Total Greg Roman fit. Trey Harris is an awesome compliment to Ladd McConkey. So I thought about that, but he has come off the injury. They're going to need to expand his route tree. But just like looking at who he is, the body type, and how he wins, and theoretically, if you expand his route tree, where he'll win, great compliment to Ladd McConkey. Jamari Caldwell, it's so funny that like throughout points of the process, myself and others, not the only one who said it, but Caldwell was kind of poor man's Kenneth Grant. Like you say the same things where it's like, big guys at 340 pounds shouldn't move that way, and he's a great 2-gap, run stopper, total nose tackle the next level. So it feels like the Chargers probably wanted Kenneth Grant to fall to them at 22, but didn't. So they just drafted the 3rd round version of that. Would have preferred it in the 4th, but it's the late 3rd. I'm fine with it. Jamari Caldwell, like that. Kyle Kennard, added that edge room. Orlando Gadsden, I'm interested to see where that goes, just because he's been adding so much weight to try to play tight end. This team that needs a tight end. Gets a great route runner. But now that he's added that weight, is he still the same guy that he was in Syracuse? Like there's just a lot of what-ifs here, but hey, look, if this hits and he can become a starter for them at tight end with his route running prowess, you're talking about him and Trey Harris, like that pass game gets pretty scary pretty quick. And then RJ Mickens had to hit on that. Like, what a supreme value. Like, I get it. Like, Mickens he's not Makuba. I think there's definitely a drop-off between those two guys in my safety rankings. But Mickens, man, I'd have taken him, earlier on in day 3, 4th round or so, and I felt pretty comfortable with it. Love what he could be opposite of Derwin James. And I know they got Lohi Gilman, too, and I think Mickens and Gilman honestly complement each other pretty well too. So yeah, very interested to see where that goes. Favorite fit got to be I'm already in Hampton though, so go Bolts. Glad we can make that Hampton to Chargers thing happen. To the Rams, I'll give them a B+. It's 6 picks. They trade out of the first round. I really thought that was gonna be Elijah Arroyo there at 14. I was shocked, and I put it in my day 2 mock because you hear how much they like Loveland. And then they let him go by, but that's okay. Or they let Arroyo go by, who I thought was the next closest thing. But, Terry Ferguson, rock solid tight end. My tight end, 5? Yes, 5. I think so. Yes, 5. Ahead of Fannin and ahead of Helm, so wherever that stacks up. But, yeah, definitely a position that could get better. Another nice pass catcher, worked the middle of the field, does a lot of things right, solid blocker. Be an asset in the red zone because of that. Yeah, solid pick. Josiah Stewart, can never have too many pass rushers. And now you got Verse and all that power on one side, Stewart on the other. And Byron Young's mostly there to play run defense. Don't really think he's that great of a pass, rusher. So now Stewart will probably just come in on passing downs, and Byron Young will step out to the sideline after, in a obvious passing situation. So like that rotation a lot. Jarquez Hunter, really fun. They just keep adding these running backs. So, sorry to any dynasty owners of Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. I don't know what this means for that, but they just keep adding to that room. Ty Hamilton, just a nice run stopper to throw in that mix. Chris Paul Jr., why did he fall to the 6th or 5th round? I get it. He's a little small, but great sideline ability, and he's fearless running downhill. What's not to love if you're the Rams? And then Mumfield from Pittsburgh, don't sleep on this one. Wouldn't be shocked if he makes the roster and could become an interesting weapon. I also think Demarcus, Robinson, could he eventually play that role for the Rams? I don't know. He might, but I'm kind of intrigued by that. But yeah, rock solid across the board. Favorite pick? Honestly, I'd probably say Chris Paul Jr. just because they got him in the 5th round. I just love that value and definitely a spot where I could see the Rams needing an upgrade. All right, next up, the Raiders. A lot more picks to talk about here. I'll go A-, and I'll say my favorite pick, I'll go Jack Besh. I almost comped him to Jacoby Myers, so it's kind of interesting that now they're both playing on the same team. But I think Besh could play outside for the time being. Right now, they kind of needed an X receiver, and they just didn't really get that. You could also say Darian Porter for my favorite pick. Jeansy, really, that top 3, they nailed it. In so many of my mocks, too, where running back, corner, receiver, or running back, receiver, corner, like we got here, or it's corner, running back, receiver, But those 3 positions were almost always my 3-round mocks because it was pretty obvious. They needed to get an upgrade at those 3 spots specifically. So home run fit, they got a blue chipper at GT. Besh I thought was a really nice add. Love that he gets to play with Jacoby Myers because I do think they are very similar. For the meantime, I guess Besh is going to play some X, maybe Myers. I don't know how they're going to work that out, but I'll let them figure that out. And then Porter's a total Pete Carroll type, freaky athlete, long-armed, big body, he checks all the boxes there. So totally and fully in support of that as well. So, and then Charles Grant, honorable mention there, especially as this Colton Miller situation is kind of unfolding. It makes you kind of go, I think they're going to work that out, but I do also think left guard could be a spot they get better. You could move Parham over to left guard and start Cap at right guard. You could also cross-train Charles Grant at right tackle if you're not feeling super great about DJ Glaze as this new regime comes in, new GM, new head coach. So a lot of different options there with Grant, right tackle, left guard, left tackle, so we'll see where all these things go, but really good player, and I think back end the 3rd was a good spot to get him. Dante Thornton, the Al Davis, legacy pick, love that, and also they needed an X receiver, and let this guy be your wind sprint route runner, let this guy clear out, sign me up for that. Tonka Hemingway, you drafted Tonka, sign me up. I mean, how perfect is it that a nose tackle is named Tonka? That is just chef's kiss. And then JJ Pegues right behind it. Yeah, one of these 2 guys is going to work. Pegues definitely more athletic, light on his feet than Tonka, but they needed some guys on the interior. Honestly, I think both these guys could still make the roster. Christian Wilkins coming back 100%. These 2 guys only make Wilkins that much better in my eyes. And then, you get the Montana State and Cam Miller, Melo and Cam Miller used to go head-to-head. I think they were 1 and 2 in the FCS, Heisman equivalent, so that's cool. Very interested to see where that goes. Apparently, Malot's going to play receiver. This is your Julian Edelman situation. So very curious that a team owned by Tom Brady is now doing that. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. Also, shout out Cody Lindenberg. Had a pretty good Senior Bowl. Good athlete. Fearless downhill. This almost kind of feels like they lost Robert Spillane this offseason. It feels like they just kind of drafted a 7th-round version of that. Very similar. If he becomes Robert Spillane, that'd be an awesome buy in the 7th round, too. Let me just add. So no guarantee, but love that fit. And I actually think they got a pretty good value on Lindenberg there. Favorite pick, Besher Porter. All right, next up, Miami Dolphins. I'll go B here. So I only give out 3 Bs, and this is the 3rd of them. Favorite pick, to be honest, Jonah Savaiinaea, just because I've been high on him this entire process, and I think he's a great scheme fit. Grant, boom bust, but I do get it. They got to get better on the interior. But then also Jordan Phillips right behind it. So it's are you going to play Grant at 3-tech? Which if you are, color me interested. I'm very fascinated with that because that to me signals you see him differently than just about everyone else. Because Phillips is a nose tackle, and he's going to be a sawed-off, run-stopper, 2-down guy. Grant, I think, comes with 3-down flexibility, but if you're going to have Phillips play nose tackle, where's that put Grant? So I'm just kind of interested to see where all this goes. But if you're going to play Grant at 3-tech, like, he's a good athlete, and that might unlock some potential for him as a pass rusher. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. And then 7, guard tackle flexibility, great scheme fit. Sign me up for that. Jason Marshall Jr., good to see he went as high as he did. I've kind of always had a little soft spot for him. I think he's a good player. I think the beginning of this year was better than the end of it. But he replaces Jalen Ramsey, does not. So very curious to see what happens with Jalen Ramsey / what happens with the secondary moving forward. And then some, throws the dart to Ollie Gordon. He's a very different running back than what they currently have in that room. But hey, if he gets back to his 2023 self, what could go wrong? He is definitely a guy. This is like contrary to belief because you see this big physical runner and he doesn't have a whole lot to make you miss in short area. He is a zone running back. Like, you would think he's gap, but he is someone who needs build-up time. So, like, especially wide zone, that was when Ollie Gordon in 2023 was at his best because they gave him build-up speed. And it also, like, they had a very bad offensive line, so that kind of helped mitigate that. It was like 119th, I think, in PFF run blocking grade that year. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. But it was somewhere in that ballpark. And that kind of helped alleviate that a little bit. But, yeah, dude, like, let Ollie Gordon get into space, let him hit his top-end speed, and now I'll try to bring down 226. I dare you. So very interested in that. And then Quinn Ewers, just because, there's some upside, just going to need to clean up his footwork. This is the team that worked with Zach Wilson for a point of last year, if my memory serves. But so it's just kind of interesting bringing in this guy. I don't think Ewers' arm is, just naturally, plant his feet, let it rip, as good as Zach Wilson. But there were some things about this scheme fit for Ewers in this offense and, playing with timing, touch over the middle of the field. There's something there that could be interesting. I'd be curious to see how far they can draft and develop that. Zeke Biggers, too, not a bad player, too, in the 7th round. So really putting emphasis on that interior defensive line, rightfully so. You lose Calais Campbell, it's just Zach Sealer and not much else. I understand that, but yeah, very curious. I'll go 7 though, for best picks. I do like that scheme fit, and obviously a team that needs to invest in offensive line. Minnesota Vikings, B+ is the overall grade. Best pick, I'll go with Donovan Jackson. This is what I predicted in my mock. Granted, it came after a trade back, which, a trade back at 25, and then a trade back at 26. I can't help but wonder, this team with 4 picks coming into the draft, finished with 5, would it have been wise to move back? But I think they saw Booker off the board, Zabel off the board. There's no way that Donovan Jackson makes this to us at 34 where the Giants were, or, wherever. I think he would have been there if they traded back with the Giants, but no guarantee for sure. Who knows? The Chiefs might have done it at 32 instead of Simmons. Or, who knows what so many different dominoes could have fallen. So, do you think it's a good scheme fit? Gives you that left tackle flexibility, as Darisaw comes back from injury. And now this interior offensive line overhaul. How many years have we been talking about the Vikings? Yeah, they got Bradbury there, but they could do better. This interior offensive line needs to get better. How many years have we been saying that? 3, 5, longer? Well, they did it this offseason. And Jackson, Kelly, Fries, hit. I mean, in my opinion, yes. Sign me up for that. And that's also how you protect your second-year quarterback who's now getting his first year playing time. So sign me up for that. Ty Felton, I think that's a great receiver 3. That's an upgrade over Jalen Naylor. I'd been kind of saying Tej Johnson as that third receiver because I think play action heavy, let him get to the top of his routes. Ty Felton, sub 4.4 speed, crisp route runner, good hands, good ball track. He'll do a lot of the same stuff, and he'll do it at 183 pounds versus 154. So totally get their thinking there. Tyrion Ingrams-Dawkins, very fascinating player. Played nose tackle all the way out to 5-tech. So versatile defensive lineman. And Flores is going to mix and match with these guys. So, and what RAS legend too, I think like a 998 RAS score. So freaky tester with a ton of defensive line flexibility. So very, very interested in that. Kobe King, nice linebacker. Throw him in the mix on top of Cushman and, or Cashman rather, and Ivan Pace Jr. So I think he kind of complements those two guys pretty well. And Bartholomew, just, the tight end, throw the dart. We'll see. I'm pretty sure they still have Josh Oliver there. So maybe Bartholomew's their third tight end. Maybe he's a cut, in training camp. We'll see. Favorite pick, though, I'll go with Donovan Jackson just to finish off that offensive line overhaul because you can tell those were the eggs they were putting in their basket. That was the basket they were putting their eggs in this offseason, and that they did. New England Patriots, I'll give them an A, and I am Will Campbell's a guard crew. But if you see him as a tackle and you're going to let him fail a tackle, I understand. He also comes with a fail-safe. If he's done work out a tackle, I am telling you he's going to kick ass at left guard, and I'm fully confident in that. So no matter what, Will Campbell's going to work. He's going to be a hit for this team. It's just, did you get a tackle it for or did you get a guard it for? But it's going to be a hit. Travion Henderson, didn't really think about it in these mocks. Love it. He's absolutely better than Antonio Gibson. Ramondre Stevenson, fumble issues. Henderson, he had one fumble his freshman year. Nonsense. So yeah, love that. But also, second-year quarterback. Go get one of the best pass-protecting running backs, but also one of the best pass-catching running backs in the class. Josh Daniels, back as the OC. Utilizes his running backs as pass catchers. Yeah, think James White. That and plenty others. Trayvon Henderson checks the box there fully. And Kyle Williams, maybe the best separator in the class, right after Travis Hunter and Ted McMillan. Honestly, more than Ted McMillan. So like one of maybe the best pure separator in the class for his quarterback going into second year. After they just had two guys, Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. Baker we didn't really see on the field, but Polk just couldn't separate. Yes. Jared Wilson. This team could use a center for the future. Yes. McDaniels has typically been gap scheme, but like we'll see what happens with Wilson. I think he's good enough to fit in both, but I would love to see him in a zone scheme. Craig Woodson maybe a little early for me, but then home run picks back to back. Farmer's a perfect guy. If Barmore's healthy, like that, Farmer doesn't interfere with that, and they bring in Milton Williams. If anything, like bull in the china shop, like power Farmer has, 36 plus inch arms. He's a really nice addition on top of what you have with Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. And then Braden Swinson, which I know the character stuff, he's not going to, he's butthead with his coaches at college. He didn't show up to the Shrine and kind of rubbed some people the wrong way there. But in the fifth round, what do you have to lose? It's going to be one of two things. They're going to either know right away and he's cut during training camp, or he's going to mesh with Vrabel and they're going to have one of the best value picks of the draft class. And he's going to be a DPR. This is your kind of Josh Uche replacement who could play the run. But I think in a perfect world, you're just letting Landry and Keon White do that, and then you're just letting Swinson pin his ears back and finish drives for you. So sign me up. All that is just fantastic value. Love. That middle round, I mean, those first four picks being so offensive focused, yes. And then those fourth and fifth round picks with Swinson and Farmer, love it. So yeah, got to give the Patriots an A. Absolutely one of the best draft classes that we had. And I'll say favorite pick, I'll go Kyle Williams, honestly. Just Drake May's going to find that guy if he's open. And sign me up for that. New Orleans Saints, next up. I'll give him an A-. I'll hold off. I would love to say Tyler Shuck, my favorite pick here. But honestly, I got to go Devin Neal. We'll see what happens with Kendra Miller. I know they extended Alvin Kamara, so maybe it's not this year, but I feel pretty good Devin Neal is going to eventually become the lead back in that Saints running back room. Honorable mention, though, to Kelvin Banks, because I love what he does. You play him at left tackle, assuming this is the plan. Play him at left tackle. Talise Fuanga goes back to his natural college position at right tackle. Trevor Penning, let's see what that looks like at guard. If it doesn't work out, we've given him multiple years, multiple starting positions on the offensive line. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it wasn't this regime who took that. But I just love it. And minimum, Banks plus Fuaga, love that tackle tandem and that blocking scheme. So sign me up for that. Shucks throw the dart at the quarterback position. If he doesn't look good, you can move on from him as early as next year. Vernon Braun's a really nice pass rusher from the inside, too, so I did want to talk about that. Jonas Sanker, I love that addition. Box safety, nickel corner type for me. Danny Stutzman, downhill player. Got to work on him in coverage, but Demario Davis, very good mentor for that. And then Quincy Riley, could play the nickel. I mocked Jacob Parrish a lot to the Saints because I felt like they could use a guy in the slot. I just plugged Riley into that spot, move Alontae Taylor out wide, so sign me up for that. And then Fadil Diggs. I think there's some upside there. Nice designated pass rush specialist in Fadil Diggs coming out of Syracuse. And then Maliki Motival, another guy. I mean, this was one that their day three kind of struck a chord with me. Stutzman, I think it was undervalued. Riley, solid player, undervalued. Neal, one of my guys. Motival, I've been kind of pounding the drum for him as a day three tight end. Better athlete than he looks. Really good inline blocker. And then Fadil Diggs, pass rush specialist. So yeah, they really hit the mark there with me on day three. So I'll go A-. Favorite pick, Neal. Honorable mention to Kelvin Banks. All right, next up, New York Giants, A-. Favorite pick's Abdul Carter because they got a blue chipper and holy cow. Now that edge tandem is, off the charts with Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau. But I do want to say honorable mention to Darius Alexander, my IDL 5, and then him as your 3-tech next to Dexter Lawrence. Oh my. Now you're going to get into 4-man, 3rd and 13 set, let's just call it. And that's going to be Carter and I would assume Brian Burns off the edge. Sorry, it's Kayvon Thibodeau. And then Alexander and Dexter Lawrence from the inside. Oh my. What their offense is going to do against that. The Giants have put themselves with Carter and Alexander into a top 5 defensive line conversation. And I'm totally here for it. Jackson Dart's going to be the one that everyone wants to talk about. Use my QB4. I think there's some upside. I think it's going to take at least a year of sitting, though. And I do think the Giants have the infrastructure to at least get to week 12. If Russell Wilson, they start 0-6, they're going to make a quarterback change. And I think they can ride out with Winston. And that's worst case scenario. I don't think Russ is going to go 0-6. I'm just saying worst case scenario, Russ goes 0-6, they make a change, and then you have Jameis Winston. They'd probably turn it over to him for at least 3 to 6 weeks. And I think ideally 6, and then you can get to week 12. And week 12, week 13, if you have to turn it over to Dart, so be it. But hopefully the Giants are competitive, can get to 500 ball, and we just see Jackson Dart in year 2, letting him sit, mature, learn an offense, get up to speed. That to me is the most ideal outcome. Cam Scadaboo plus Tyron Tracy, one guy with a lot of speed, great pass catcher, get him out into space. And then Cam Scadaboo, contact bounce for days, also a good pass catcher. So color me really interested in that backfield for the Giants. I think it's a nice 1-2 punch. Marcus Bowe in the 5th round? Absolutely. This guy could be their starting left guard as soon as this year. And what happens with John Michael Schmidt? Bowe might become their center. I scouted him as a center, but he definitely had guard flexibility. But I'm kind of looking at one of those 2 guard spots. John Runyon at one spot, and then I'm trying to think of the old vet. That's the other starting guard for the Giants. Names escape me, but Bowe, I think, is going to be a starting guard for them either on the left or right side. And Runyon is playing on both sides, too, so you have a lot of flexibility with where you play him. Thomas Fedone, Corey Black, not much for me to write home about there. So Carter, my favorite pick. Honorable mention to Alexander. Dart's the one that everyone wants to talk about, and I think this is a good landing spot, not only because they have the infrastructure to let him sit, but Brian Daboll, and I do think Daboll is a very good offensive mind. To the New York Jets, my favorite pick here, got to be Armand Membu. I had started mocking this last, I want to say like 4, 5, 6 mocks I did. It just made too much sense. Finishes off that offensive line overhaul that spanned the last 3 years. Running quarterback in Justin Fields, who hopefully this year gets the confidence and improves as a passer. But you're going to tap into his legs. You're going to utilize that skill set. And Armand Membu leading the way, yes. Mason Taylor, this was the exact 1-2 I had in my mock draft and had for a while. My last, like I said, 4 or 5 mocks. It was Membu, then Taylor. Love his inline ability. They're going to use him as a seam runner. He's a good route runner, fluid mover, sure-handed, red zone threat for days. That's exactly what you want. You already have account for Fields' legs. Now you have to deal with Taylor for your defense. Sheesh. Zaire Thomas like this too, especially with DJ Reed gone, man press corner. The 40's concerning, but if he does his job at the line of scrimmage, you're not going to need to worry about the long speed. So like him getting in there with Sauce. That's a nice little 1-2 on the outside. Arian Smith, boom bust potential here. 22% drop rate last year is absurd. Senior Bowl, I thought it looked a little bit better, but long speed for days. And that's just what it's going to come down to. Can this guy hold on to the football? Because if so, he'll get behind secondaries. Malachi Moore, nice nickel safety player. I really like that fit. And honestly, if they play him box safety, honestly, he's a Swiss Army knife, so you could kind of play him all over. But I think box safety, get him some nickel rips. I know you got Michael Carter there. I think that's where you'll get the most out of him. Marioga, and then Tyler Barron. Not a pick I would overlook. I think that could be a nice DPR specialist. Really good athlete. Solid tape coming to Miami. So, Membu, my favorite pick. Jets, this was a chef kiss draft. And especially those first 3 picks, those were like tackle, tight end, corner. Like a lot of times those were what I'd be mocking. Or it would be tackle, tight end, DB, somewhere in that mix for the Jets. So I love their ability to best player available, but also addressing positions of need. The Eagles, we're getting close to the end here, folks. A lot of picks. My favorite pick, I think I got to go with Jahad Campbell. They did move up. You know what? Actually, it's got to be Cameron Williams. Sorry, it's got to be Cameron Williams. We'll start with Jahad Campbell, though, that's the honorable mention. They did give up a 5th round pick, and they gave it to the Chiefs. I found that a little weird, but they also boxed out anybody else from trading up to that pick, and maybe the Chiefs had multiple teams on the line. I think that's a possibility. But really interested in that Howie Roseman would draft a linebacker. First time the Eagles had done that in the first round, said 79. I do think Campbell's a really interesting fit for Vic Fangio's defense. He has a lot of the skill sets you're looking for. Plus, pass rush specialist, Nolan Smith, different schools. And he was an edge rusher at Georgia. But, there were conversations, will he be an off-ball linebacker? They can truly play him at edge. I'm very interested in the usage and the deployment of Jahad Campbell, especially with Bond back, Jacoby Dean when he's healthy. What do they want to do with these guys? So, very curious. Andrew Bakuba, they can line him up everywhere. Love this in addition to Ed Reed Blankenship. It's not really his name, but Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown, who I also liked coming out of Illinois. Ty Robinson, that's a really solid Milton Williams replacement. Not even a guy I should have thought about that connection and that pairing. Like that a ton. Mac McWilliams, drafted and developed this guy. Physical corner, solid Senior Bowl. Smile London Jr., another athletic linebacker. Let's just see where it goes. Plus, he's a Georgia guy. He's got a lot of friends on the team. Why not? Drew Kendall, I'm kind of scratching my head. I don't know where that's going to go, but develop backup center maybe. Kyle McCord, hey, why not? Like I said this the other day about the Browns. Like Kenny Pickett to DTR, that was probably a cut for a cut, and we're just going to kind of see where this goes. So you're going back to the Browns to draft 2 quarterbacks. Don't be surprised if Kenny Pickett's the odd man out. And here for the Eagles, don't be surprised if Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the odd man out, even though he does have the dual threat ability that kind of matches up Jalen Hurts. But we'll see. Kyle McCord, interested that he fell to the 6th round. And then Cameron Williams. I mean, I had been mocking this a ton, and 3-round mocks in the 3rd. I've been doing it in the 4th round most recently. They give him the 6th. All that to say, my man Cameron Williams got to change his representation. He came out a year too early. Had he gone back to school at Texas, I think he could have been a top 50 pick to call it safe. Got the goods. He's got the tools. Just raw. It needs to be coached up. Now he gets to go to Jeff Stoutland University. So congratulations, Philadelphia Eagles. You have your right tackle of the future. And then APR, Antoine Powell-Ryland. Freaky athlete. The arms are very short, but very productive player at Virginia Tech and a very good athlete. And if there's a team to make it work, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. So Cameron Williams / Jahad Campbell, my favorite pick from Philly. My Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll go B+. I thought about making it just a B. But ultimately, They're going to throw the dart quarterback with Will Howard. I see him as just like a solid backup. Honestly, very close to comping him to Mason Rudolph. So kind of ironic that worked out. Yaha Black, I think they'll play him at D-tackle, but it sounds like there's some conversations they might play him on the edge. So I would just make him your two-gapping nose tackle. But we'll see. Jack Sawyer's kind of an interesting guy to throw into that mix, but they trust. If the Steelers are drafting an edge, I'm not going to knock it. Edge and receiver, like they have such a great track record of drafting those positions that, I'll let you cook. Caleb Johnson, that's the home run fit. Like that guy plus Jalen Warren, great 1-2 punch in the backfield. They complement each other a ton. Inside zone scheme with Arthur Smith, inside to outside zone. And Caleb Johnson zone back at Iowa. Just perfect scheme fit. And then just like tackle 224 pounds in January at Acrisure Stadium. I dare you. And then Derek Harmon. Like this is a great compliment to Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward, but his skill set's very similar to Cam Hayward that when the time comes, this is a natural pass the torch situation. My favorite pick got to be Caleb Johnson. Love this. Had this in my last mock, so sign me up for that. Might have to comp me a jersey here pretty soon. San Francisco 49ers, more picks than I'm used to talking about. And favorite pick, I'll go Jordan James. Not the normal type of running back, but I do think zone fit, just low center of gravity, bouncing ball type. With them losing Jordan Mason, I think there's a lot of Jordan James that I think checks out there. But I do also want to hit Connor Colby. Don't rule him out. Zone blocking scheme at Iowa. Could become a starter by the end of his rookie contract for this team, specifically at left guard. Wouldn't shock me whatsoever. Curtis Rourke, if there's a place for him to go and become a success story as a 7th rounder, you found it. San Francisco 49ers. Congratulations to you, Curtis Rourke. Marcus Siegel, good athlete. Nice over-the-top free safety. I'm interested to see what could come of that, especially after they lose Hufanga this offseason. Malik Mustafa sounds like he's out for the season, so Marcus might be seeing the field a good bit there as a day 3 pick. Jordan Watkins, another guy that no one talked about, and I had a couple people in comments of videos like nobody talks about him, and I was like, no, I like the player. Kind of a hard scheme to judge what he'll do at the next level, but good athlete. I like his route tree. I like his quickness. He looks like a guy who could add to his route tree, I should say, and a good yards after the catch guy. Like all that to say, he feels like a bigger, more physical Jacob Cowan, who's already on this 49ers team and is already their punt returner. So I really like Jordan Watkins as an addition to that offense. I think he does a lot of things well, and he'll run those crossers. He'll be good in open space. He'll do exactly what Shanahan wants him to do. And then real quick, I got to hit on Upton Stout, and then we're going to get on to a bigger emphasis here from the 49ers. Upton Stout, play that guy in the slot. They already had a slot corner. It felt like Lenore was kind of locked in that position, but they didn't draft a boundary corner, so maybe they're going to use Upton Stout on the inside and then move Lenore full-time to the boundary. I think that would be the way I'd play it. Curious to see what the 49ers do, but I love Upton Stout, so back in the 3rd round, sign me up for that. Overall emphasis on the front 7. Nick Martin, he was injured last year, but that guy can fly around the field. But furthermore, on the defensive line, the 49ers had enough of last year being run on. Like, that was a run defense that was uncharacteristically not very good. Not the worst, but one San Francisco 49er, pillar of their defense. Michael Williams, day 1. That guy's going to be a nice run defender. CJ West, shot off, shotgun arms, but man, that guy can play the run like a monster. Alfred Collins, question is what you're going to get out of him as a pass rusher. I say not much, but as a run defender, oh boy, you're getting a lot there. So emphasis on stopping the run across the board, across that entire defensive line. So I do love that. I question the upside with Michael Williams, but in Chris Karustik, I trust. And there is definitely some upside to mine out of Michael Williams. So favorite pick of the bunch, I'll go Jordan James. But I love the overall emphasis on we're not gonna have what happened last season. Teams are not gonna run the ball down our throats, never again. So I love the emphasis on cutting that out. Seattle Seahawks, what a draft! Gray Zabel, perfect scheme fit. The reason they didn't get an A is trading up for Eman Worry. He was 56 on my board. But this is one of the few landing spots. I said this a ton when I mocked him as a 1st-round pick to Seattle. If there's a place where he's going to go where I can feel like he can have success, it's a Mike McDonald defense in Seattle. Elijah Arroyo, fantastic addition, a team that needed to get an upgrade at tight end. Absolute perfect fit. Jalen Milroe, just a swing of the bat. Let him sit for a year or two behind Sam Darnold. Learn from Clint Kubiak. Let's just see where this goes. Tons of potential. Just going to come down to if he can become a more consistent passer. Riley Mills was hurt, but he was a nose tackle that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish defense was missing. Once he went down, could be an interesting 2-gapping nose tackle for the Seahawks that I don't really think is on their roster. Torrey Horton, though, that's my favorite pick. And there's Gray Zabel right there with him, honorable mention, but Torrey Horton's the X-receiver that they were missing and the field-stretching guy that will open up things for JSN and Cooper Kupp. Love the Torrey Horton ad, and I don't know why he fell to late 5th round. I know he's coming off an injury, but Look at the 2023 tape. I think he would have been drafted in the top 100 last year, let alone he should have been this year. Damian Martinez, another one I wanted to hit on. Love. I know they got Charbonnet, I know they got Kenneth Walker there, but this guy is like brute force behind those two dudes, like just different body types to have to tackle. Sign me up for that. Seahawks, that was a really, really strong draft. Would have been an A if not for giving up assets to go get Nicky Mamori. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'll go A-. I know Ibuka is not like everyone's flavor. We'll see. Mike Evans could be gone as early as next year. I don't think he'd do that because I think he's going to be a Buck for life, but we'll see. And I know it's Buccaneers, but, spacing. Favorite pick here, I'll go Jacob Parrish. This is just like a scrappy player they've had so much success with. I really want to say David Walker or Elijah Roberts because I think those were great value plays. Roberts, this is like your Logan Hall replacement a year before he hits free agency. And then David Walker, like 4th round, like DPR. You got Reddick, he's a 1-year deal, but you have enough guys who can play on early downs. Just for a team that needs pass rush, you get in 3rd and 10. Trot out David Walker, let that bull rush play, man. Like, I love it. Great value. And then also, we talked about Ibuka. Tess Johnson, because, why not? He's there in the 7th round. He's staring you in the face. This team might roll 7 deep at receivers. They're not getting rid of Baker's guy, Sterling Shepard. They just re-signed Chris Godwin. Jalen McMillan's going into his 2nd year. Not getting rid of him. He was productive as a 3rd rounder last year. Like I said, Mike Evans, now Ibuka, now Tess Johnson. Like, oh my God. Just 5 wide all the time. But we'll see what ends up happening. But I like the flyer on Tess Johnson. It may not work because 154 pounds is obviously the smallest we've ever seen, but he's a good football player and has a great 3-cone and was unguardable at the Senior Bowl. So let's go see what it's all about. Honorable mention, though, to Ben Morrison. Do like that addition. Boom, bust play. If he's healthy, they're getting an absolute steal and a great addition to that defense and honestly a nice boost because Jamel Dean's been up and down. But Parrish in the nickel, I know they got Izzy in there, but I would just play Parrish in the nickel. You could play him on the outside. He's scrappy. He's tough. So maybe it's an outside competition long-term between Morrison and Parrish. But wherever Parrish ends up playing, I think that was really good value for just a scrappy football player, Todd Bowl type to me. But I really like what the Bucs did. And they just went best player available. They didn't, hey, we already drafted a corner. We can't go Parrish. Well, he's the best guy on the board. Hey, we already went receiver. We can't go Tess Johnson. Well, he's the best guy available. So Jason Light, just strong, steady, sound process all the way through. 2 more teams to talk about. Tennessee Titans. I'll go A-. Favorite pick, low-key. I want to say Kevin Winston Jr., but I feel like it's got to be like Ayumanor just because he fell you in the 4th round. Like, what do you have to lose? They need an ex-receiver. They need another guy who can touch the field. Boom, here you go. Need to clean up his drops, but he's one of the younger guys in this class. So I feel confident that he'll be able to do that. Also, he's been catching passes from Stanford quarterbacks. So, yeah, I think it's going to get a whole lot better when he's catching from Cam Ward. A lot more consistent. I think that could shore up the drops, too. Sometimes drops, it's hard to get into a rhythm, hard to get in the flow of a game when you're not seeing the ball enough, and when you do, it's off target. Now you get the chance. You got to capitalize on it, and maybe you drop one. But Cam Ward to get the number 1 overall pick. We knew that was the pick of the making. New era in Tennessee. Femi Oladejo, maybe a little early for me, but I'm interested to see where this goes. Definitely a lot of tools and traits there, and he plays the run well. Just need to get more consistency out of him as a pass rusher. Kevin Winston Jr., my safety 2, planted my flag on that. Love what he's going to be as a tackler, box safety type, but I think as a split safety, free safety, box, you name it, I think he could do it. And Jameer DK, maybe a little earlier than I thought he would go, but he'll run those crossers, and he's a great deep threat with nice ball tracking skills. So I like that too. And Gunnar Helm. This team could get better at tight end. Nice middle of the field, yards after the catch weapon here for your first-year quarterback in Cam Ward. Jackson Slater too. Nice interior offensive line depth. So a lot of players. Khalil Mullings, former linebacker, turned running back at Michigan, and just an absolute handful to bring down. And running back room I think still feeling itself out. Spears feels like a nice complementary piece. Maybe not a bell cow. Adding Mullings to that mix is kind of fun. So I like it a lot. I mean, they hit a lot of positions of need. They got players that I liked. What more can I say? Favorite pick? Yeah, I feel like I like that value. It's just too good. But honorable mention, of course, to Cam Ward, my top quarterback in this class. The Washington Commanders, and this will put a bow on it. They only had 5 picks, but I'm going to give them an A- because I think they went 5 for 5. Josh Connerly, like that scheme fit. Tunsil, you can get rid of him in 2 years, but also, I think Connerly has said that he's willing to move to right tackle. I know that 1 rep at the Senior Bowl, I was there. I think that was his first rep of right tackle play that entire week. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the first. So, give him some grace, give him some time, he'll get there. You also don't have to play him right away. You could play Andrew Wiley still at right tackle, but I think in a perfect world, Connerly, great scheme fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense, plays right tackle. Wiley fills in at right guard for the time being before Cosme comes back. Yes. Sign me up for that. I mocked Amos to the Commanders a ton in the first round. They get him at 61. Yes, all the way around. That's just a perfect scheme fit. Love that addition to the secondary. Jalen Lane, at minimum, all those screen passes you saw go to De'Ami Brown, those are now Jalen Lane. Sub 4.4 speed, but I also think with his route running prowess, there's more to add to that offense. So love him as a deep threat, crossers, and the screen game. Kane Madrano, In the 6th round, he's just a freak athlete. Let's just see where this goes. And I think it's a position where they could use a little bit of depth. Minimum, Cade Madrano is going to be a stud on special teams for this team. And then Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt. I've been saying, Brashard Smith, can we get him into this offense? Maybe it's Trayvon Henderson in the 1st round. Because this backfield needed, one, pass catching, but also needed some home run juice, needed some big playability. Brian Robinson's not going to do that. Eckler's certainly not going to do that. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, light feet and big play potential every time he touches the ball. So sign me up for this. Also a solid pass catcher. So yes, loved it. It's only 5 picks, but also, hey, you want to throw the other names they got this offseason with those picks? Throw Laremy Tunsil into this list of names. Throw Deebo Samuel in this mix. And now would you say it's an A-? Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, they traded a lot in next year's draft class to get Tunsil for sure. And, it would have been nice to come up with an edge rusher. That was the one spot they didn't address. So it's an A- for me because, the picks for Tunsil, some go in the future. Would have been nice to get some edge help. Do you think that's a spot they can continue to add? But, hey, the 5 guys they got plus those 2 trades, man, it's hard not to say. Those 7 players, think of it as a 7-player draft class. Tunsil, Connerly, Deebo, Amos, Lane, Madrano, JCM. Hard to be dissatisfied with that if you're a Commanders fan. So, yeah, A- at the minimum for Washington. Another fantastic offseason put together by Adam Peters. But, guys, that is going to do it for my grades for all 32 NFL teams this draft cycle. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. I want to reply back to this post on X. Who do you think had the best draft? Who was maybe the weakest draft class? And of course, who's your favorite team? And what would you grade your team's draft class? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'd love to hear how you think some of these picks are going to project. Sometimes you can hear me say, maybe he's a tackle, maybe he's a guard, maybe he's playing here, maybe he's playing there. Let me know what you've heard from your team. I'd love to hear kind of the insights of that. Let's get ahead of training camp and those discussions for me if you can. So love to hear your thoughts. Definitely drop them below in the comments or shoot me a DM on Twitter. But that is going to do it for this episode of Beyond the Tape. Until next time, my name is Tej. We are signing off.